Greetings and salutations, YouTube. This is Fragments of Memory, also known as your friendly neighborhood armchair philosopher. As I've been watching the dialogue about things going on YouTube, where we talk about men and women's issues, not that that's my focus, but lately I've just been watching things by certain YouTubers, certain like Sergeant Willie P or even Chrissy, and I know that that's kind of back there, but I see things talking about dating, mating, and though I'm married, I still find the whole dance between the sexes fascinating and definitely rife with peril at times. But anyway, I began to think about the law of unintended consequences. Like, it's a concept that was popularized by Robert K. Merton, which states that unanticipated consequences or unforeseen consequences are outcomes that are not the outcomes intended by purposeful action. And I got this quote. This is a quote from a Forbes article I saw online. Anyway, John Maxwell, he writes a lot about leadership and development and thinking and so forth. And he has discussed this in many of his writings and works. This was even discussed in an episode of I Dream of Jeannie, which I really enjoyed the episode. Jeannie would give her master, Major Anthony Nelson, is played by the late, great Larry Hagman, her powers for 24 hours. And there's a scene where things are going crazy and he's wondering why it was, and he realized something that's off. And it turns out Jeannie comes back and basically tells Major Nelson, hey, she did this thing for him. She gave him her powers for 24 hours. And then she issued a warning to be careful. With her powers, she said he could stop a war but end up starting 10 more. He could end the drought in the Sahara Desert but end up draining the Atlantic Ocean. And this is the episode I Dream of Jeannie, so this is slapstick fantasy comedy, and here we go, talking about unintended consequences. So I intend to do this good thing. I intend to do this thing of value, and in doing that thing, I end up making something terrible happen. I noticed that when it comes to certain subjects, such as educational help or social help for young children, I've noticed that there's a lot of emphasis on black girls succeeding. There's a lot of emphasis on black girls rock. There are programs dedicated for the uplift and advancement of black women and girls. There's no such programs dedicated for men and boys. And then we wonder why the black boys are destructive and why the black men are unproductive, because a lot of us don't have our so-called houses in order because there was no program for us. There was nothing there. So we did a good thing for the girls, but in paying attention to the black girls, we abandoned the black boys. And I noticed that unintended consequences and trade-offs seem to go hand in hand. There exist those in the world who believe they can have it all, and people don't believe in this thing of unintended consequences or trade-offs. And I love that TV show Friday the 13th, the series. It had nothing to do with the Jason Voorhees killer. It was basically a first-run syndicated show that aired in the late 80s all the way up until 1990. And basically the whole premise was there was an antique dealer by the name of Louis Vendredi. And Vendredi is French and Friday, by the way. But anyway, Louis Vendredi makes a deal with the devil to sell cursed antiques. But what ends up happening is he breaks his agreement with the devil, and the devil takes his soul as payment. So now that he's dead, he has a niece and nephew who inherit the antique store. And now they don't know that all his cursed antiques are in this store. So when they sell the cursed antiques unknowingly, knowing that it was evil, and then they were going to sell the stores, get the money, part ways. Anyway, what ends up happening is they find out by meeting an old associate of their Uncle Louis's that basically these items were being cursed these items had been cursed by the devil. So the premise of the show was every week they would go out and hunt down these cursed objects. And of course, every week you had a person that got the cursed object, and they would use it for their personal benefit. So there'd be a person that either used it for money, for love, success, power, or revenge. And each week it was always a different item. It was like a cursed scalpel, where there was one where the physician, he could do these great surgeries, but he'd have to kill somebody with the antique scalpel before he could do it. There'd be a writer who wrote really good bestsellers, but he had to use the pen to kill people with it. So it was just an interesting premise. So you check the show out. You can probably YouTube Friday the 13th, the series. But the point of me bringing up that series was but Friday the 13th, the series, it showed that here was this object that could give a person benefit, but the object was cursed. So the curse was, I now had to kill somebody. The curse required some form of a blood sacrifice in order to make the magic work. Even in the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when Stephen Covey, he teaches this lesson of when you pick up one end of the stick, you pick up the other end, which means you can choose the consequences you can choose what you do. You can do whatever you want to do, but you cannot choose the consequences of what you do. So I can walk up to a random person and insult them and get a punch to the face. So I can do whatever I want to do, but remember, there's always consequences and repercussions for what we do. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. I see this definitely, I look at it in the Islamic religion. In the Islamic religion, there's actually prayers or du'as and supplications that one makes to Allah, where basically they say, like if you get a new garment, there's a prayer that says, hey, Allah, give me the benefit of this new garment and protect me from its evil. When you get a spouse, it says, hey, God, protect me, give me the good in this woman, but protect me from the evil that's in her. Even in the Quran, it talks about how when they talked about wine and gambling and its prohibition, they said, in it is some sin and some benefit, or some profit, P-R-O-F-I-T. But the sin far outweighs the profit of it, or the benefit you get out of it. So the whole point is that there's a little bit of good and evil in everything. I don't mean on some Wiccan, New Agey movement type stuff, but I do mean that you get certain benefits out of things, but those benefits may come at a price. There may be an unintended consequence for what happens or what you refuse to do. So that's just something I've been chewing on and ruminating on for a while. Not ruminating, but at least letting swirl in my brain for a bit. What do you guys think? Well, that's just my 2 cents on the situation. Be easy like Sunday morning, and peace.